Hi everyone, I'm Gabrielle with Americans for Prosperity. Joining us today is House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy to talk about tax reform. Leader McCarthy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Before we begin, I want to thank you and I want to thank Americans for Prosperity for all that grassroots work that they did to help us pass this bill. I know it's been years in the making. It was not easy, but it was a really team effort to make this happen, so thank you.
Thank you so much, and I know that our activists are thrilled about the results of tax reform. And really, in December when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, this was a tremendous victory. Can you tell us why were these reforms so needed?
Well, they were so needed because the onerous of the tax bill itself. I mean, it was pushing companies to leave America. It was punishing companies if they wanted to bring money back into America. But most importantly, what was it doing to the individual, right? It's taking more out of their pocket. It's making it harder for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur and start a new business or not. And what was so interesting when we passed the bill with all the things that the Democrats said about it, from this is going to be Armageddon, you know, these are just crumbs. Well, now we see what the real change is all about. Millions of people have now got bonuses. Everybody should check their checks this month because 90% of all Americans are getting a pay raise only because of the tax bill. And then we found we're sitting here in winter, these energy companies have now lowered their rates in more than 37 states. So your rates are lower in your electricity bill because of the tax bill. Then think of this, just the 1.2 million Americans that work at Walmart that got a longer maternity leave, are all those companies that raised the minimum wage. This bill is doing everything the opposite of what Nancy Pelosi said it would do. And I'll give you two small stories. I was with my brother on a Sunday and we were watching the Olympics. My brother is an electrician and he works for the state. He says, you know, this week we were in there and we got our paychecks and everybody came in and said, oh my gosh, we got a pay raise. They didn't quite realize it was the tax bill that gave them this raise. And this weekend, I was in Cleveland, Ohio to speak at their Lincoln Day dinner. The next morning, I'm leaving the hotel, I'm walking out, and the doorman opens the door and says, oh, good morning, Congressman. I said, oh, good morning, how are you? He goes, I want to thank you. I said, okay. He goes, I want to thank you for the tax bill. I got more money this month in my paycheck because you passed the tax bill. Never met him before, but that's really what we want, that every American can benefit from this. And they can make a better decision with their money than government can.
That's exactly right. And I know as Americans for Prosperity, we've been talking about these benefits a lot with our activists, and they are fired up about it. Can you talk a little bit about the work, the impact of the work that grassroots organizations did, grassroots activists, making phone calls, door knocking? What kind of difference did that make here on the Hill?
It made all the difference in the world, because as you remember, the Democrats wanted to play it about politics. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to say things that weren't true. They would go out to the press so that if you took a poll on the bill, people were not supportive of it. But now today, the numbers have just risen up because people are seeing now the benefits of it, of really what's happening in this tax bill. You look at all the new jobs are created, the more money out there. But if those grassroots were not out there walking door to door, if they weren't making those phone calls, putting the pressure on people to actually make that vote, we would have never gotten here.
And you mentioned companies investing in their communities. You know, we've seen AT&T, Starbucks, you mentioned Walmart. What about this bill is encouraging more investment in workers and in the U.S.?
Well, what's most important, you got to look at the old bill, right? So if you were a company and you were successful and you're selling your product around the world, we would punish you to bring that money back home. So the past tax bill would simply want you to keep your money overseas and invest in another country. You watched what Apple did, right? Apple's going to pay, what, $30 billion to America and bring all that other money back and invest in their companies. They're going to invest in their shareholders. They're going to create new companies at the same time. But what's the part that I'm most excited about, this is the lowest rate in more than 40 years for small businesses. Small businesses create more jobs than any other corporation or anything else. And we're going to see them start coming to life, even being stronger in our cities across America. I know people that have come to me and said, I'm going to take that risk now because I have the ability to do it. And the rates are lower. I just had a company in today that say they're changing a lot of their policies. They're an American-based company, and they said, you know what? A couple of years ago, we literally had a decision that we were going to move our company out of America because of the tax code. But we thought maybe you guys could actually change it, and you did. And the most exciting part, I was in the Oval Office when we introduced the bill. We had an American company that had left America, went down to Singapore. It came back to America. They spend $9 billion they invest every year. Part of that in R&D, part of that in other research as well, and part of that in manufacturing. Well, you know what? That's now in America. And they're paying American taxes. That's fantastic with American workers.
And that's incredible. And I think that since really January, I remember when I got back home from the holiday break, we started hearing all of these announcements, one after another about investments thanks to tax reform. And you mentioned the utility companies lowering rates. That's one thing that I think was an unexpected benefit. How do things like that, how do you see those as pushing back on a narrative from tax reform critics that this is just a tax cut for the wealthy?
Well, it's so true. That is so true that it's for all Americans. If 90% of every American is getting a raise in their paycheck, simply because of the tax bill, or what the withholding is, but no one ever talked about the other benefits. We talked about your wages going up. Think about how many millions of Americans that they raised their minimum wage. Not because government mandated and people went out of business, because they got more money and they gave it back to their employees. Then all those millions of people who got bonuses. I love the story about the young mother who was really concerned because, of course, she had her first child, and she spent more like anybody else on a Christmas for him. Didn't know how she was going to pay it, and she literally had tears when she got her $1,000. She said, you know, it was like praying. There was another mother talked about she still owed some money at the hospital for her last birth of her child. Or another person talked about they fixed the car, and it was the only car in the family. Well, those are not crumbs. Those are fundamental differences in a family, and they're going to get the money each and every month as they go forward. That's the difference that it makes. But here you are, no one talked about your bills actually being lower in cost. That they took the rate, by lowering the corporate rate, they plowed that back in on the tax savings into the utilities, back to the users, to their customers, that they're charging them less. So now you're getting more money because your bill's less in the process. That's a benefit, and that makes America stronger.
And can you talk a little bit about what is the status of making sure that the benefits of these tax cuts last? You know, is there the ability?
Well, you know, because of the rules of the House and the Senate, they have these really arcane rules. So part of it's permanent, part of it's not. We're going to vote to make the rest of it all the way permanent. And we'll do that this year. And that'll be interesting to watch what the Democrats say then, or how they want to vote then. Because now the benefits are really happening. You know, I even saw, what was it, Bill Murray on TV the other day? He goes, you know, he doesn't get into politics. And he simply said, this has been good. Right. This has been good for the economy. And people try to make it so partisan. I mean, for Nancy to try to argue. When I looked back at Nancy Pelosi, some of her quotes, she was proposing for a $40 tax cut with Obama. And now she's saying $1,000 is crumbs. I don't think she understands the average man and woman in America. That's the difference.
And as we look ahead to the rest of this year, I mean, do you feel like the benefits of these tax cuts are just beginning? We're just starting.
It's just beginning. I think you'll see a growth in the market, simply because I think a lot of companies will be paying higher dividends. I think you'll see greater investment. People actually, when they have more money, they're going to spend that, right? Maybe they take a family vacation they haven't. Maybe they make that investment they haven't before. Maybe they could spend a little more, pay for the college books or others. But so you're going to see that investment move and be even stronger in the economy. And look, for instance, what were you at? A 17-year low when it comes to unemployment. These companies are going to hire more people. Then the other part, look at the confidence. We're at one of the highest level in business confidence we have out there too. And a lot of that is to do with this tax bill and what we've done about regulations. But what I've said so many times before, it's not that we've done it just here. It is the grassroots that have made the arguments, put the sweat in to help drive the idea and the solution at the same time.
And as our activists look ahead into 2018, what can they be doing to kind of push back against some of the mainstream media silence on the benefits of tax reform, and really show that they're seeing these benefits and thank lawmakers?
You know what I think all the grassroots should do? They should check their check and go on their social media and tell their story. Like I was with Andy Barr last night at dinner, and Andy Barr is in Kentucky, and he had just done a tour about grassroots and tax reform. And he had an audio, because you got to listen to this man. And he comes up, and he's from a little part of Kentucky, and he says, I'm getting $49. I don't know if it's every 2 weeks or every month more. He says, that's not crumbs, that's more than $500 a year. And to me, in Kentucky, that's a lot of money, so tell Nancy she was wrong. And it was amazing just hearing that voice and the excitement of what he saw happening. Well, that's happening across the country. And if we don't tell that story, people won't see the truth.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Everyone watching, remember to check your check and share the benefits that you're seeing from tax reform.